Good evening, everyone. Shabbat Shalom and Hag Sameach. Happy Sukkot. We're also going to be celebrating Simchat Torah as we rejoice with the Torah this evening. It's wonderful to have all of you here in the sanctuary. Thank you so much for coming here in person. Just as a reminder, up to 54 people can feel free to come join us in the sanctuary. And welcome to all of you back at home. I'm Rabbi Matt Berger, joined on the bima with our soloist, Allison Rosoff, and down at the keys, I promise you that she's there, Joy Katzen-Guthrie. This is the first of 5 Shabbatot called Lador Vador, from generation to generation, an intergenerational Shabbat service. The thought behind this is it'd be great every once in a while to get some families and some kids, some kinderlach, to join us in the service from time to time. We'll start these services. There are 4 more after this at 7 o'clock p.m. And I've changed some of the English translations, some of the musical styles to make it a little bit more, hopefully, user-friendly, kind of a folk camp style. You'll be able to follow along whether you're at home or here right on the screens, or you can feel free to use the Siddur. Our first song that we're going to do today is Happy Holiday, and sing Happy Holiday, Chag Sameach, and Shiru, which means sing Chag Sameach. Chag Sameach, Yai la la la, ya la la. Chag Sameach, Yai la la la, ya la la. Chag Sameach, Yai la la la, ya la la. Chag Sameach, Yai la la la, ya la la. Shiru, 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 Chag Sameach, Yai la la la, ya la la. Shiru, 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 Chag Sameach, Yai la la la, ya la la. Shiru, 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 Chag Sameach, Yai la la la, ya la la. Shiru, 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 Chag Sameach, Yai la la la, ya la la. Chag Sameach, Yai la la la, ya la la. Chag Sameach, Yai la la la, ya la la. It's going to be a special candle blessing because we're not only celebrating Shabbat, but this evening we're celebrating the Yom Tov, the holy day of Simchat Torah. So on the screen you'll see, after we sing Light These Lights, there'll be the prayer for the candles for Shabbat and for the holiday as well.
Oh, hear my prayer I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy
May these festival and Shabbat lights open our eyes to the joys in life, beauty that delights the eye, freedom to be ourselves, the knowledge of Torah that shapes our being. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, for giving us life, sustaining us, and enabling us to reach this moment.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehekianu v'gimanu v'hegianu lazman hazeh.
So this evening, we've brought into the sanctuary the 4 symbols of Sukkot, the lulav, which represents the spine, the strength of our body, and the hope and the prayer that will always stand straight with courage and with integrity. We have the myrtle, which is kind of the one that looks like an eye, or the hadass. It's this smaller set of leaves. Eyes so we can behold the beauty of the universe. And the willow, which are kind of like a lip type shape, kind of thin and wide, so that will offer kind and good words to people. And finally, the etrog, which is shaped like the human heart, so that love will always guide us towards ma'asim tovim, good things to do, and following mitzvot. And what I always like to do to get a good smell of this is scratch and sniff. So some of you know what a scratch and sniff sticker is, and that's what you do it. And just a little bit about this, pre-Eitz Hadar, which is the fruit of the tree of the Hadar, the etrog. This is in the little museum that we have in the cabinet from the Netherlands. I believe it said 1924. That's around, so it's approaching 100 years. So it's nice, it just fits in, maybe a little bit big for the etrog, but it's working beautifully. We're going to continue with a Shabbat song now, Shalom Aleichem, Peace Be to You. It's found on page 24 or on the screens.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei HaMlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Malachem Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Continue with the half or Reader's Kaddish, page 26.
Yitkadash, Yitkadash, Shmei Rabbah, B'yamad Yivrach Yurtei, B'yamlich Malchutei, B'chayechon U'v'yomechon, U'v'chayei Kol Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Bagala, U'v'zman Kariv, V'imaru Amen, Yeshmei Rabbah, לעולם עולם ימיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמיד רם בעלמא ויאמרו amen.
Let's rise. We'll continue with the call to prayer, the Baruch Hu.
Open up our eyes.
We're doing the Baruch Hu. Lai, 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 yai, lai, yai, lai, yai, lai, yai, lai, yai, yai, lai, yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, yai, lai. And I'll ask you to look on the screen for our next reading for the Ma'ariv Aravim for creation. Your world is like a puzzle, God, and all the pieces fit together. The sun lights up the earth by day, moon and stars glow at night. In every season, we sense your presence. And on Shabbat, we give thanks for the world and its beauty. Baruch atah Adonai HaMa'ariv Aravim. You'll also find the reading for Ahavat Olam, great love, on the screen. With a great love, you have taught us how to live a life with meaning through mitzvot, sacred memory, celebrations, and Torah. They are the light of our eyes, the essence of our being. Blessed are you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. And before we sing that God is one, the Shema will sing, Open Up Our Eyes.
Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live.
Teach us how to live.
Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to מלכותו לעולם ועד.
Feel free to be seated. We'll chant the V'ahavta, really the continuation of the words of the Shema and the Torah, on page 36 or the screen before you. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, vidibarta bam, vishitecha bevetecha, uvlechtecha vaderet, ushoptecha uvkumecha, ukshartam leot ayadecha, vehayu letotafot bein einecha, uktavtam Al mezuzot petecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru basitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kedoshim leloechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher otzeiti etchem Meretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem lelohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. Turning to page 39, getting ready for a prayer of freedom. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught wherever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there's a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. There is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. And for Mi Chamocha, we'll be singing the same special Sukkot melody that we did last Friday night, called the Na'anuim melody, specific for Sukkot. Mi chamocha b'nim Adonai, mi chamocha neder b'kodesh, Torah tegilo osif eled, Adonai imlo le'olam va'ed, mi chamocha b'nim Adonai, mi chamocha neder kodesh, lo ratigilo osef eled, Adonai imlo le'olam va'ed. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praise are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. And we'll continue with a prayer of shelter and protection, the words of Hashkivenu. Some of the English translation you'll find on the screen above you. And this prayer talks about the Sukkot Shalomecha, same word as our holiday, the canopy of peace that God gives to all of us. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, l'hamitenu shomreinu l'chaim, uvros aleinu sukat shlomecha, uvros aleinu sukat shlomecha. us safe throughout the night,
till
till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right.
Amen.
Blessed are you, God, guardian of Israel, shelter of peace, spread over us, over all your people, Israel and Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei Sukkot shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Let's rise now for the central words of our Shabbat evening prayer, the Tefillah, which begins on page 46.
Adonai, sivatai tiftachu fi hilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'chonei HaKol, V'zocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevii Geula livnei v'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer, U'Moshiach U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol, Atah Rav lo'Oshia, Morid Hatal, Mechachel Chaim bechesed, Mechayei HaKol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim ve'rofei cholim, U'matir asurim, U'mechayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, U'mido melach, Melech memit u'mechayeh, U'matmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lechayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol.
Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom, yalu chasela, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el ha'kadosh. Feel free to be seated. We'll continue with the three blessings in between, called the Emsaot. First, for the holiness of Shabbat, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat, and a prayer hoping that God's presence will always be with us and be with Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamachazir Shechinato L'Tzion, and a prayer of gratitude, God of goodness. Baruch atah Adonai, Hatov Shimcha U'cha Na'eh Lechodot. And during the holiday, during Sukkot, really all three festivals, there's a special prayer for the day that I'll read. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Ya'alev yavo v'yizacher zichronenu, which means, our God, God of our ancestors, be mindful of us, your people Israel, and recall us for good, and in loving kindness and compassion for life and peace on this festival of Simchat Torah. Zochrenu Adonai Eloheinu bo letovah, ufokdenu vo livracha, vehoshienu vo lechayim, which means this day remember us, this day bless us with your nearness, and this day help us lead a fuller life. As we say, Amen. Take these moments now for our own silent prayer. Allison will lead us in the singing of Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki Atahu Melech Aron Lechol HaShalom. Ki Atahu Melech Aron Lechol HaShalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'yinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol eir u'b'chol shah b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
So this is normally where we would have our prayer of healing, but since we're going to be reading from 2 Torah scrolls today, we're going to push that in the middle of the Torah service, where it belongs when there is a Torah service. So on page 245, it's not going to be on the screen, this particular reading, we'll begin our Torah service. Assemble the people, men, women, and children, to hear, to learn, to revere Adonai your God, and observe faithfully the words of this Torah. Let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere Adonai your God. So we're going to rise now as we take 2 Torahs from the Ark, and we'll continue with Ki Mitzion, from out of Zion came the Torah.
Ki Mitzion tetzei Torah. Ki Mitzion tetzei Torah. U'devar Adonai miRushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Li'amo Yisrael b'kudeshato. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Lecha Adonai hagidula v'hagivura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod. Kicho b'shamayim u'va'aretz, Kicho b'shamayim u'va'aretz. Lecha Adonai hamamlacha v'midna Nagila hava, Nagila hava, Nagila venismecha, hava, Nagila hava, Nagila hava, Nagila venismecha, hava nevanana, hava nevanana, hava nevanana venismecha, hava nevanana, hava nevanana, hava nevanana venismecha. Ruachim, Ruachim belev sameach, Ruachim belev sameach, Ruachim belev sameach, Ruachim belev sameach, Ruachim, Ruachim belev sameach. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael high. 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 Ora vinu chai, 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 ora vinu chai.
All right. Whenever I wear the mask, there's a little pee popper, and it always comes out. And what's interesting, when I'm breathing, I can feel it moving around inside the mask. Well, don't really want to glue it. All right, well, I'll deal with that later. Okay, so this is exciting because we get not one, but two Torah readings. Now, if we had a whole bunch of people, usually you need about 40 people to completely unroll a Torah scroll, but we don't. So, counted up all the people who are watching from home. We'd definitely be over that, but all of you at home can't really help with holding the Torah. Nevertheless, we'll be listening to the final verses of the book of Deuteronomy. Moses' final day, the people of Israel are ready to actually get in to the land of Israel. And following that, we'll begin the Torah cycle once again. We'll go right back to the front and read from this other scroll, which is rolled all the way back to the beginning, to Genesis, Bereshit bara Elohim. There are two very, very special aliyahs that happen on Simchat Torah. One is called the Chatan Torah, which is the bride or bridegroom of Torah. That's the person who does the blessings before and after, which you'll find on the screen. And then there's the Chatan Bereshit, which is the bride or the bridegroom of Genesis. So first I'm going to call up our Chatan Torah, our couple, Tom and Dorsey Rose, to come up to the bima. There you are. And their Hebrew names, Yamdu, Tuvia ben Velvel, Devorah bat Shoshana, La Aliyah, La Torah.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarah.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamevarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bakar banu mikol ha'amin. V'natan lanu et Torto. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
V'lo kam navi od v'Yisrael k'Moshe asher yida'o Adonai panim el panim l'chol ha'otot ve'hamoftim asher shelacho Adonai lasot be'eretz Mitzrayim L'faro kol avadav ulchol artso ulchol hayad chazaka ulchol hamorah hagadol asher asa Moshe le'enei kol Yisrael. So in essence, it's saying that never again is there going to be another prophet as good as Moses, and a little bit before that, saying that the Spirit of God was not only with Moses, but also with Moses' successor, Joshua. And even at the end, Moses was Me'av Isrim. He's 120, but in seriously good health. Eyes undimmed and vigor unabated. So it means he can still see and was pretty healthy. Good for Moses at that age. When you finish a book of Torah, it's customary to say 3 Hebrew words, really a phrase, and you usually chant it. I'll say each one of them to you. It's chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. So try that. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Means strength, strength. May we all be strengthened by reading Torah and learning from Torah. Can't all be Moses, but we can certainly do our best to try, be like Moses and Miriam. Now, our closing blessing. Tom and Dorsey, you can come over.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher natan lanu Torah emet l'chayei olam natan betohenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. And I'll ask all of us to rise for the lifting of the Torah scroll and dressing.
Torah אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה יא לי 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 לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה יא לי 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 la
All right, feel free to be seated. Musical Torahs today. And now for the bride and bridegroom of Breshit, the Hebrew word for Genesis, meaning in the beginning. It's my honor to call forward Mike and Nicole Skalka. Yamdu, Moshe Ben Aaron Levi, Miriam Yeti, Chana Nava Bat Avraham Vasara La Aliyah La Torah. It is.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Ba'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach Leolam Ba'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bocha banu nikol ha'amim, v'nosan lanu toraso. Baruch Atah Adonai nosein ha'torah. Amen.
Amen. All right, now we'll hear the first verses of Genesis with that huge letter Bet. It's about 3 times bigger than any of the other Hebrew letters in the Torah scroll. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz ve'ha'aretz hayta tohu vavohu ve'choshech al panei tehom ve'ruach Elohim merachefet al panei hamayim vayomer Elohim yi or vayi or vayar Elohim et ha'or ki tov vayavdeh Elohim ben ha'or uvein ha'choshech vayikra Elohim la'om yom ve'la'choshet kara laila vayi erev vayi voker Yom Echad. Now you can probably guess what that is about. It's about the first day of creation, that God created heaven and the earth, and on that first day distinguished, first of all, brought light into the world, and then distinguished light from darkness, and there was evening and there was morning, day one, which is why all the Jewish holidays start in the evening, right from the source in Genesis chapter 1.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emes, v'chayei olam nasa b'tzachenu. Baruch atah Adonai nosein ha'torah. Amen.
With the Torah before us, we will now offer a prayer for healing and strength for those who are ill. You'll find the blessing right behind me, also on page 253, if you're in your Siddur, your prayer book. And at this time, we think of especially Yonatan Reuven ben Rivka, Charlie Burke, Marcy Bunn, Lisa Cargile, Eddie Deerfield, Edie Eckber, Leslie Eckhouse, Evelyn Edelman, Heather Felser, Harry Fleisch, Denise Freifeld, Mitchell Freifeld, Maria Yehuda Gonzalez, Jerry Gottlieb, Leah Gottlieb, Doris Harding, Priscilla Harris, Paula Hickey, Norm Kelton, Vinnie Croca, Arthur Maller, Arnold Miller, William Miller, Rabbi Avram Reifer, Stephanie Ross, Arlene Charlotte, and Jeff Stark. If there are other names you'd like to add, either here in the sanctuary or at home, you can feel free to recite their name aloud.
My father, George Stark.
Amen.
I'll ask all of us to rise as we lift the Torah scroll and eventually return it to the ark. First singing, "This is the Torah, V'zot Torah," and then that Torah is a tree of life. Eitz Chaim Hi.
Torah asher שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה.
All right. So, you can't see me from at home, but you'll soon see me. So I am walking all the way toward the beginning of our illustrated Torah, which you've been seeing the whole time. But it's a little bit of a schlep because I got to go all the way around. There's no real way to get across. So I didn't really want to jump over it. And now, hopefully, you'll see this panel. So I'm going to go through about maybe like 10 of these panels. This is really cool. There's an artist in Florence, Italy, and she makes all of these. And with her husband, they go around to various parts, back in the days when people would have big conferences and everybody would go and things like that. And you could buy either a single canvas panel. This isn't made out of, any sort of animal hide. It's made out of canvas, so it's really, really sturdy. You could get one particular panel, like let's say it was a bar or bat mitzvah, and you wanted to celebrate that. You could get a single panel for Breshit, if that's when the fall bar or bat mitzvah was. Or you can get the whole thing, which is obviously, 54 different portions, and it's a lot more. Times 1 times 54. Maybe there's a little discount. I don't really know. I know what the total cost, not sure what, and I'm using a little pointer So hopefully some of you can see at home. So this is Genesis. I should be out of the way of the camera. And some of the pictures are the first 6 days of creation, the light, the water, the sun, moon, stars, animals, fish, whatnot, all the way to a nice little picture of Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden. Remember that whole bit with the apple? You know, you can do whatever you want, kind of freedom to roam, but don't eat from that fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But they did, and then this last picture on the bottom left-hand corner, they're getting ejected from the Garden of Eden. But don't worry, that's okay. They're human, and the rest of the world continued after that, so we're still good. Going to our next panel, this is Lech Lecha. So Lech Lecha, we read during the fall. This is the beginning of the story of Avram, who eventually becomes Abraham, one of the 3 patriarchs of our people. And moving on to the next panel, we're going all the way now toward the end of the book of Genesis with Miketz, which means at the end, because it says at the end of 2 years' time, when Joseph was in the slammer, was in jail, kind of wrongly convicted, so to speak. I don't even think they had any sort of a court trial, but he ended up in jail, and while he was there, he was able to interpret some dreams, and then ultimately Pharaoh found out about it after 2 years' time, which is why it's called at the end, or Miketz. So you have some pictures of the Joseph kind of coming before Pharaoh. Now, I'm going to move over to the beginning of Shemot, or Exodus. So Shemot just means names, because the first chapter is just a listing of all the people, the 70 individuals who came down with Jacob from Israel, or Canaan, as it was called at the time, down to Egypt, where things were looking pretty good, at least at first. And down at the bottom, if you can see it, Tom and Dorsey can see this really well because they're literally right in front of it. They may be blocking, but I don't know. Who knows for you at home? But this is the burning bush, where God speaks out of the bush and says, I am what I am, or I will be what I will be. And the second panel that I wanted to show you in Exodus is Bishalach, which means Pharaoh finally lets the Israelites go, of course, after all of those really, really bad plagues, ranging from the frogs and the lice all the way to death of the firstborn kid. Not a good one at all. So here you have the Jews at Yam Suf, or the Red Sea, and they're ready to go across. And then right underneath that, you have Miriam and the women dancing with the timbrels, like that Debbie Friedman song, and the women dancing with their timbrels. So that's Bishalach. Over here, now we're into construction mode, so people who like HGTV, like myself, you like to watch Flip or Flop or something like that, this is a very early but important version of Flip or Flop. This is the creation of the tabernacle, or the portable sanctuary, and it's called Vayakel. And at the bottom, if you can see it, that's the tabernacle itself. In the middle is the Ark of the Covenant, and then surrounded, it kind of looks like triangles from far away, but these are like different tribes of Israel who are hanging out and watching what's going on. Back then, it was the tribe of Levi, or Levi, who basically ran all of the religious rituals. If people wanted to give an offering, something like that, they would give that to the priest, and then the priest would offer it on their behalf. Nowadays, of course, if you want to pray to God, you just do it. No intermediate type of person. This is Vayikra, which means and God called. So this is God calling out to Moses and to the people and saying, in the beginning of the book of Leviticus, I, God, am holy, and therefore you should be holy. And here you have a picture of what eventually became the big temple in Jerusalem. So the artist is taking a little bit of liberties, fast-forwarding all the way to the land of Israel and to Jerusalem with the creation of the big temple, not the portable sanctuary. Now we're going to go over to, you've got some great views right out front. This is Kiddushim, all the different ways that we can be holy. So it could be in business. So here's a guy holding like a bag of money, like, make sure you pay your wages before the end of the day so that people can get food to eat. Courts of justice. So here's somebody, really two people, and then this person is probably a judge. That ultimately God's the judge, but it's important in courts of justice to have things be equal and fair. It's still something that we're fighting for even in the modern day. Here is Bahar, which means on the mountain. It's a really interesting ritual here. It talks a lot about kind of social safety net. That's what I would call it. You have things like the Shemitah year, which is the 7th year you let all the agriculture in the land of Israel lie fallow so the soil can kind of recuperate. And then, right at the bottom, you have what's called the Yovel or Jubilee year. So that happens 7 years of 7 times 7, and then the 50th year is the Yovel or the Jubilee year. For those of you who know what Friendly's ice cream is, when I was a kid, I never ate it because it had nuts and I didn't like nuts, but there was something called the Jubilee roll that you could buy in the freezer section, but I always thought it was pretty cool. It was very colorful. But this Jubilee year was kind of a reset of all loans and debts and things like that. It didn't really work out too well, so later on, the rabbis made what's called a prose bowl. They made a decision to, instead of having loans reset between one person and another in the 50th year, they created basically a central bank, and the central bank would then take over the loans so that the letter of the law could be followed while people who gave loans to people wouldn't go out of business. And Jews at that time couldn't give debts or loans on interest. It had to be 0% APR financing. So this is Ba'alotecha. Here you find all the rules having to do with Passover. You'll also find the longing for Egypt. So this is, I put it under the general Israelites complaining a lot, longing for what they had back in Egypt. The grass is greener on the other side, all of that. And that's Ba'alotecha. And we're going now all the way toward the piano, and the fifth and final book, Ba'alotecha, was Numbers, and now we're in Devarim, which means words or things or matters. And here we have the different places that the tribes will eventually go on their journeys, because part of Deuteronomy is the continuation of these various stops that the Israelites were making. And right at the bottom, Moses has his hands in the air. He's kind of looking very frazzled. He's got white hair at this point, and he's getting fed up with the people, because here again they're complaining about water, and already on multiple occasions God did the miracle. Moses tapped the rock, and then water shot forth from the rock. And final, right by Joy. You finally get to see Joy. Finally get to see Joy. I assure you she's been here the whole time. Vizot ha-bracha, which means, and this is the blessing. And this is the part that I read from. And here's a really cool picture of Mediterranean Sea. All of the different tribes and their locations, most of which are in the present state of Israel, some of which are now in modern-day Jordan, or what was called Moab at the time. They got a special exemption to be shepherds and do agriculture from Moses and the leadership in Moab. So that's the quick triptych, and I'm going to make my way back to the bima. Onward and upward, as they say. We're going to continue now in our prayer books with the words of Aleinu, the adoration on page 282. And please rise as the ark's opened.
לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו כהמונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר היה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
At the end of Sukkot, on the first or second day of Shavuot, the Festival of Weeks in the spring, and then also in the early spring, the last day of the Passover festival, it's customary to have a special moment of Yizkor, of a memorial for those who have died in years past, and especially those who have died in the past year. We'll begin the Yizkor service with the singing of Psalm 23. You'll find that right on the screen.
Adonai roi lo exar bin odei she'ar b'tzini al mei menuchot, al mei menuchot nafshi shovev yishovev yanechen b'maklei tzedek, yanecheni b'maklei tzedek, למען
Please feel free to join me in the translation with God is my shepherd, I shall not want. The Eternal makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, restores my soul, guides me in straight paths for the sake of God's name. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Eternal forever. Our loved ones live in our broken hearts, and at times that brings some measure of healing. Their acts of kindness and generosity are the inheritance they leave behind. We feel their absence, but the beauty of their lives abides among us. As it is said, the name of the one who has died shall not disappear. Our loved ones' names and memories will endure among us, and these are the names, our lips and in our hearts. As we remember members of our congregation who have died during this past year, we remember Shirley Abelson, Elaine Laurie Aiken, Robert Allen, Irving Barron, Dora Barron, Frank Blitzer, David Bloom, Armando R. Caballero, Pablo Carreño, Anita Cohen, David Curtis, Vera Fish, Hugo Freudenthal, Jeffrey Garfield, Toby Golger, William Groom, Richard Harding, Paula Hickey, Lois Kander, Erwin Kern, Myrna Klein, Abraham Konigsberg, Evelyn Kornfeld, Paul Joseph Landis, Robert Lapin, Elaine Lapin, Newton Levy, Paulette Markowitz, Donald Marks, Sheldon Melmoth, Paul Messina, Stephen Knoll, Bella Uziel, Marlene Packler, Jean Patrick, Mildred Fetterman-Plotnick, Diane Rosen, Esther Sargrad, Dennis Schneider, Riva Sorkers, Nan Strauss, Eureka Teitelroyd, Deborah Tripp, Hilda Turner, Clayton Lee Van Ness, Nathan Wassoff, and Harry Wilkes. And we'll rise to offer the traditional prayer asking for God's compassion on each of these loved ones' souls. You'll find that right behind me.
El Marachamim Shochem Amromim Amitzei Mechona Nechona Techad Kanafei Ashikina Im Rashim Tuhurim Kizor Kiyam Asirim Lenishmot Yakirenu Shechalchu Leolamim Balarachamim Yastirihu B'Seiter Knafav Leolamim Vitrur B'Trach HaChaim Et Nishmatam Adonai Nachalatam V'Yanuach B'Shalom HaMishkavam V'Romor Amen.
Fully compassionate God on high, to our loved ones who have entered eternity, grant clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold them in the embrace of your wings. Secure their souls in eternity. Adonai, they are yours. They will rest in peace. As we say, Amen. Feel free to be seated. We think of families in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning, before we recite Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. As we remember Myrna Klein, mother of Lonnie Klein, Shirley Abelson, mother of David Abelson, Bella Uziel, mother of Albert Uziel, Pablo Carreño, cousin of Belinda Konigsberg, Toby Golger, mother of Elisa Katzef, and Paula Hickey, sister of Vicky Deinhardt. And on this Shabbat, we mark the yahrzeit anniversary of passing of loved ones of the following individuals: Sari Bierhoff, Gussie Bohm, Max Capdevila, Renee Castillo, Crystalie Costello, Nissim Curiel, Henry Dreyfus, Sophie Elias, Jack Fishman, Gussie Gendler, Norman Gottfried, Irene Grubman, Lillian Harris, Leonard Kent, David Konigsberg, Michael J. Lertzman, David Manis, Paulette Markowitz, Melva Naddis, David Nemso, Gertrude Roller, Peggy Rose, Esther Scheffler, Francis Shapiro, Neil Scheidler, Diane Simon, Gerald Slavny, Donald Stein, Saul Stone, Mary R. Walsh, Frank Wiener, Mary Zeisler, and Mildred Zielinski. Are there any other names to add for yahrzeit? We say Zichronam Livracha, may all of their memories be a lasting blessing as we rise to offer the words of Kaddish praise together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayekon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach le'alam u'lamei al-maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudishah b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'yalma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'asei shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen.
Amen.
And the one who causes peace in the heavens, cause peace to descend on us, Israel, and the world, as we say, Amen.
V'miru, 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 amen. V'miru, 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 amen.
Feel free to be seated. A lot of ups and downs in this service. Jewish calisthenics. You'll find the blessing for the wine of the grape juice, Kiddush, on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, l'shabbat kodsho, be'ava uvratzon, hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, hihu yom tehillah, lemikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'charta, v'yotanu kidashta, michorim, l'shabbat kodshecha, v'hava uvratzon, hinchadanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Amen. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
A few brief announcements before our closing song, which I promise you will like. Many thanks to Allison and Joy for their beautiful music, as always, as well as Steve Koenigsberg and Bruce Lowett, our tech crew this evening, with a very nice thank you to Nicole Skalka, who did a lot of the Zooming and all those things that we needed. On PBS, there are some encore recordings, I still haven't seen it, of Can We Talk, a conversation about anti-Semitism hosted by journalist Ray Suarez. I think actually one of them was tonight. And it should include, I don't know, some video footage from a recent Shabbat service that we had here at TBS, because they had some cameras rolling. Join me Tuesday, October 5th, it's a little bit in the future, for my first adult ed series on Zoom, Response to Modernity, the Arc of Reform Judaism, on October 5th, 12th, and 19th at noon. So, our closing song, and after we conclude the service, for those of you who are here, we can go out to the sukkah if you'd like to be in the sukkah, wave the lulav and etrog. We've got ample light outside there. We are going to sing the 1964 Drifter song, Under the Boardwalk, but 2, Under the Sukkah. You'll have the words right there on the screen. Oh, when the month of Tishrei comes, you know it's true. And the autumn sun beats down and shines on you. Under the sukkah, just wait for me. And we'll spend sukkah together, that's where we'll be. Can you see the cords of yellow, gold, and red? Oh, how I love to see cranberries hang above your head. Under the sukkah, wait for me. And we'll spend sukkah together, that's where we'll be. Under the sukkah, shake the lulav. Under the sukkah, shake it with the etrog. Under the sukkah, we'll celebrate. Under the sukkah, don't those veggies look great? Under the sukkah, sukkah. Now they say the Jews were wandering deserts dry, but through the roof of their flimsy booth, they saw stars in the sky. Under the sukkah, just wait for me. And we'll spend sukkah together, that's where we'll be. Under the sukkah, shake the lulav. Under the sukkah, shake it with the etrog. Under the sukkah, we'll celebrate. Under the sukkah, don't those veggies look great? Under the sukkah, sukkah. All right, I hope you like that one. It's fun. Creative person, whoever came up with the words for that one. So as we've been doing, we packed a lot of stuff into this service. Simchat Torah, celebrating Sukkot, Yizkor memorial service, and we will end as we've been doing for the last number of months with a prayer for our health and well-being. You know, I think I should start putting that up on the screen. I'll do that for next week. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al shmirat hanefesh, which means for the mitzvah to protect our lives and others by wearing masks when you need to wear masks out in public. Shabbat shalom to all of you, and Chag Sameach to everyone. Happy holidays. I'm so glad that all of you joined us here in the sanctuary and then also at home. Take care.
Thank you very much, Joy. You played beautifully. Thank you.